So, I guess welcome to the stream if you're new. Welcome, regardless if you've been here for a while or checked me out on TikTok or other social medias, apparently even Google News. I made it there. But I am here to describe, we're going to turn off the music here, that might help. Basically why I run the settings I run. Majorly it is personal preference, and just applying these settings for yourself won't exactly make you a top tier god at the game or anything, but I think it's probably a good place to start if you're new to the game or want to try to find your perfect settings. You can take this as like a baseline and tweak it to where you want it to be instead. So I will go over my gameplay settings, which are honestly, most of this is entirely up to preference, but some things are good to turn off or on depending on how experienced of a player you are, or that, visual clutter, trying to reduce visual clutter, or really, I'll let you know basically as I go through this. Interactive prop style, all this does is basically show things on the ground, the information related to them. I've played the game enough to know that everything that I pick up, it has a specific purpose and I know what it is, so I don't really need a full description of a weapon that I'm picking up. So that's why I leave it on compact. If you're a newer player, you might leave it on default just to understand a little bit better what the different guns do, but compact for me just to reduce visual clutter. Button hints. Again, I'm not a new player to this, so I don't really need hints as to what I need to do on my HUD, so I leave this off to, again, reduce visual clutter. But if you're new, you might consider turning it on and then turning it off at a later point once you familiarize yourself with the game. Crosshair damage feedback. This is entirely personal preference. For me, I like doing X with shield icon because this helps me understand how much damage I am doing to a target, and if I am playing ranked, it is incredibly important to give accurate callouts. So this to me shows to me if they are cracked, how much damage they've taken by me, and I can communicate that to my team. I know some people just like doing the X number, which, again, personal preference if they like doing that. But with the shield icon, this really helps me say, okay, they're cracked, let's push them while they're weak. Same thing with damage numbers. Stacking. To me, this is just the way I've always had it. And, you can read the definitions right there. So I need to know if it's shield damage or if it's, health. I know this can be kind of annoying if you're going up against a Watson that has her gen right next to her, because you're all constantly, if she is close to being cracked and you're shooting her, she constantly has that cracking noise. And this gets really annoying to see, but to me this is just my personal preference. You could always do floating or both, that's entirely up to you. Ping opacity, I have faded to reduce visual clutter, but if you're a new player you might keep it on default to help you navigate the map better. Obituaries, I keep this on. This is incredibly important, to me at least, to understand what teams are still full teams, or if I know there's a high skill player in my lobby, for example. I get into a pub lobby and I see, oh, that's that Wraithmaid from earlier. She's wiping up the teams. I better be careful where I see this. And if you hear fighting and you hear knocks, you know that that's the team that you're going to be facing up against. So to me, obituaries is important. I keep this on. This is on by default. Minimap rotation. This is entirely up to preference also. If you like it on, you can turn it on. All this does is it turns the minimap the way you're turning. I keep this off to keep it consistent, but I know some people like it on because Call of Duty added that option. Auto weapon cycle on empty. I think this is left on default. This is entirely personal preference. You can leave it on, off, it doesn't really matter. If you have no ammo, it kind of sucks, but whatever. Auto sprint. Auto sprint is on for me. A lot of people don't like auto sprint. They keep it off because it doesn't give them the full control that they want. To me, auto sprint is very useful because I like looking at my inventory and my map and preparing for the next things I need to pick up. So auto sprint is on because you can auto sprint with a menu on. For example, I am not touching my buttons or my keys. This is purely done by auto sprint. So I am constantly moving and on rotation whenever the menus are up, but I still get all the information I need that I need to understand in my inventory, what else I'm looking for. So, next thing, gameplay-wise, where were we? Double tap sprint. I have this off. This is incredibly annoying. The less inputs that you need to get to sprinting, the better, in my opinion. But again, personal preference. Jetpack control. This is for Valkyrie specifically. I have it on hold just because it helps me navigate better, and toggle can be very, there's a lot of inputs involved, so I like it on hold, but you can put it on toggle, whichever one you want. Incoming damage feedback. What this is basically whenever you get shot by a target, say for example this training dummy, you get these red arrows on your screen that show you where you're getting shot from. All this does is it shows in a three-dimensional space where you're getting shot from. So if he's shooting me and there's an arrow pointing downwards, I understand that there's someone shooting behind me, and I need to look behind me to understand, or to, try to shoot him back, or run away, or whatever. Next thing, tanking damage closest death box menu. In my opinion, this is one of the most important settings to turn off. It is on by default. You want, or wait, I think I have this. Oh, off, sorry, yeah. So basically all this does is if you're a controller player especially, you want this off. You know why? Because if you need to do an armor swap and you get shot, you won't be able to access that box until you re-put that input again. So keeping this off in order to get armor swaps off is very crucial in my eyes. It is entirely up to preference, but I think, in my strongest opinion, turning this off is going to be in your best interest for armor swaps, especially in hectic gunfights. Pop-up really doesn't matter, on or off, whichever way you like it. It just helps to, what hop-ups you need. Streamer mode, again, personal preference, I have it off. It doesn't really matter. Off, off, off. This is not really relevant to your gameplay. Subtitles, I know some people like running subtitles. I think it adds a lot of visual clutter, so I keep it off, but you can keep it on to help with callouts if you have a hard time hearing things. Colorblind mode, again, this is entirely personal preference. People that aren't even colorblind like turning on colorblind mode just to make things more clear. Up to you. And the rest isn't really relevant to what we're doing today. Now, video settings. Now, if you're on console, this is not an option available to you, but if you are a PC player that plays on controller, this will be important to know. So if you're a console player, just skip this. Not important to you. Display mode, I play on borderless window just because I alt-tab a lot, so that makes it where I don't lose frames and it just lags out my game. 16:9, this is just native, like what I'm running. 1920 by 1080, again, I like running this. I know some people like running 1600 by 900 to make their screens flatter and fatter and longer. And what this does, if I click apply, basically what it does is it just kind of makes your targets a little bit fatter. Some people like it, I don't like it, so I keep it off. It's just, again, personal preference and what your hardware is able to run. Brightness I have at 60% because I like seeing people around dark corners, but if that's too bright for you, you can always turn this off or lower. FOV, to me, a great balance of FOV. I know like Shiv FPS, he's another great player, one of the best Bangalore mains out there. He plays on a 90 FOV. This is a very low FOV compared to most players that run over 100 to even 110. To me, I like the balance of 106, but again, personal preference. I would not say to go anything under 86. In my opinion, having a wider FOV is really important because it gives you a better field of view. That's what it's meant to do. If you have a lower NPC, then 90 might be the sweet spot number to not mess up your rig, but this is how I run it. This needs to be disabled. FOV ability scaling. What this does is basically when you pop Bloodhound alt or Stim with Octane, it disables the effect where it makes you zoom in faster and whatnot. If you're used to playing a specific FOV, this can entirely mess up your aim. Disable this immediately. This is entirely unnecessary, and they only added this option a couple seasons ago as the time of recording this. Sprint view shake. I have this on minimal. I do not like visual clutter, as you've come to find out. Minimal reduces the amount of things going on that can mess up my aim. So minimal it is. VSync, absolutely disable this. This will affect your frame rate on your PC and will make your game run like trash. NVIDIA Reflex, if your PC can run it, I have it enabled. If not, you know, disabled, whatever. Just basically, it depends on the specs of your PC. I just have it on enabled. PSAA, this is just to help with the jagged lines. Sometimes it's really hard to look at things that are disgustingly ugly. I have this on low. This is basically just to maximize your FPS in the game and minimize, yeah, the game won't look the prettiest, but it'll run the best for your PC. I like the competitive nature of this game, so I'm going to run the competitive specs on it. So as you can tell, I have mostly everything else on low or disabled. You are free to pause the video at this point or stream or however you're watching this to see what I run, but this is what I like and this is what my PC can handle. Next thing, audio. I know a lot of people like running master audio at around 30 to 40% because there's a lot of loud effects in this game. Personally, I have my audio settings spec'd out where it runs at 70%, so that just works for me. The footstep audio on this game is notoriously inconsistent, so even if it's louder, maybe I can squeal by and listen to people just barely. This is not relevant. Sound effects volume I have at 90%. Dialogue volume, I don't need Bangalore telling me her life story whenever she picks up a gun, so I have that at 65%. Music and lobby volume, I have this as just 10%. This is not relevant to gameplay and shouldn't be the main focus. And then this is not really relevant either. Now, the meat and potatoes of this video, the important things that everyone has been talking about or want to know about me. The controller settings. So, I don't know exactly if these are the exact controller settings on console. It has been quite a few seasons since I've checked on it, but I believe they are relatively similar, if not outright the same. My button layout is button puncher. I guess my camera is blocking it, but it is button puncher. This is the same thing as tactical if you've ever played Call of Duty. This is my recommended settings for it because it moves your crouch to your right stick. And right stick is very important when it comes to movement in this game in terms of sliding. You want to have your slide as easily accessible to you as possible, so this is why I have crouch on the right stick and my melee is on the B button. I do not see myself meleeing very often. It's not something I concern myself too much with, but sliding and crouching and bobbing and weaving is very important, so I want it as quickly accessible as possible. So button puncher, aka tactical if you've played Call of Duty, is the way to go. But again, this is entirely personal preference. You can even customize it the way you want. Mind you, I just have a standard Xbox One controller. I do not have a strike pack. I do not have a Cronus Zen. I do not modify the game to my advantage in that way. But this is what I use, and this is what works best. If you have paddles, you can definitely do some difference stuff out here to change it up the way you want, and you can customize it the way you want. I know that people on controller have just recently started to learn to tap strafe. I have not adopted this, at least not yet. I'm considering on doing it. So if you have paddles or you have a SCUF controller or an Elite controller or whatever, definitely consider changing up your controller presets even to customize the way you want it, just because it might work better for you. But if you are just on a regular controller, I think this is by far the best settings that you can run, just because it's not that much different from defaults. This is pretty much the standard go-to for most FPS games nowadays. And it's really not that important to melee in this game compared to movement and sliding. So, button puncher. Next thing, stick layout I have on default. Again, this is entirely up to you. This just changes your sticks to, you know, your left stick, your movement stick, and your right stick, which is your aim stick on default. You just swap them, you can change it where it's move or whatever. I haven't seen very many people change this up. I know it was this way like back in the old Halo days, so if that's what you're comfortable with, you're free to change it. To me, default is perfectly fine, and I think for 99% of the people watching this, that's also going to be what they want. Interact reload button. To me, I just use tap to use and reload. I know some people like using tap to use and hold to reload, and vice versa. And this is what it's usually on default, is hold to use, tap to reload. But to me, less inputs the better. The only problem with this that you get if you're on controller is if you're behind a door and need to reload. And anyone that's done door duels knows that this really sucks because you can't reload and open a door because I can get you killed. So I'd recommend just having someone watch your door whenever this happens, or turning yourself around 180 to look away from the door because it won't open the door for you, and reloading your gun. That's really the only workaround around this. That's why sometimes this might be better, but I like both of this because armor swapping is done much easier this way. Crouch button I have on toggle. I know for certain high tier movement mechanics you have to do it on hold, like the super glide, or what else? Super jumps. No. Yes. There's a bunch of different movement stuff where you need to put it on hold. I have not adjusted myself to this yet, but if you're a skilled individual that's able to have the muscle memory for that, you could put it on hold. But for me, I prefer toggle. Aim button. Put this on hold. Toggle doesn't really make much sense to me, but if you are comfortable with toggle, of course put it on toggle. Survival slap button. This is really important, so I wouldn't see why you'd have this off. And this seems like an extra set of buttons that you need to do, but I think the only reason why you turn this off is if you want your two D-pads buttons to be your tap strafe buttons off the Steam redirect. What's it called? Steam, or I don't even remember the name of it, but basically just the Steam settings, where app settings, where you can change directly on there your inputs. So I keep it on just because I'm used to where it is, because going into your inventory screen in a clutch moment when you really need to put that heat shield down is a big deal. Dead zones. This is something that's very important, I guess, if you have those, what are they called, trigger stops. I have it on default just because I have a regular controller. This just makes it where how sensitive it is, as the definition says right there. I wouldn't recommend putting it on max because that takes it where it's a whole entire button press before that input is actually put in. Maybe it's just a slight input that you need to get that action going. So to me, I like just default. Menu cursor speed, I'd recommend putting this as high as you possibly can handle, because having a fast menu cursor speed gives you the ability to react and get armor swaps off, which is incredibly clutch in a lot of moments in Apex. So right now I am up to here, and I'm trying to work my way to getting it maybe at around this level, because menu cursor speed can really throw you off if you try to put it up real high to begin with. I would recommend just slowly working your way up as you build the muscle memory for it. Don't go straight off the bat to this kind of sensitivity, because it will just screw you up more than actually help you. So I think it's like real low to begin with, like here. So I've been able to work my way up to about this right here. Next, this is not relevant because I have ALC enabled. I know what it starts at is basically, I don't know if it's 3-3 or 4-4, but I alternate between 4 and 5 on ADS, so that's why it's on there, and then 6. And the reason why my look sensitivity seems relatively high is because if you want to keep up with PC players on mouse and keyboard, you need to react to them and their movements quickly. Having something lower than 3 has really hindered me in my ability to actually just be able to turn around my character to look at the target that I'm trying to look at, especially if they're doing crazy movement stuff like zipline jumps and tap strafes that go way off your screen. You need to be able to react to this quickly, So I've built up the muscle memory to get to about 6. Now, in Call of Duty, because that's my background, Call of Duty, I was able to run a 7/7 sensitivity out of a 20 gauge. And I will go into this a little bit later on. There's a Reddit post where someone did a breakdown, which is really helpful, honestly, of basically transferring your Call of Duty sensitivity to Apex. But because they run on 2 separate engines and because Apex has a different sensitivity multiplier, you kind of have to do some math involved. But I will link in the description down below basically this Reddit post and that you can do this yourself to whatever sensitivity you were running if you have a COD background. If you had a Titanfall background, then you really shouldn't need this. I don't think it would really help you. But for me personally, and I know for a lot of people, they're coming from Warzone, they're coming from Call of Duty, this will help them. Per optics setting, for me, I haven't changed it, but I know for a lot of people where they have higher zoom scopes, if they're using snipers, they lower that sensitivity to do more fine-tuned, precise movements. But for me, I haven't changed it, just because that's my muscle memory of what I'm used to. I'm fine with the Sentinel as is, or with the longbow. I didn't really need to change it, but if you feel the need to do it, then that's up to you. Response curve, I have it on steady, and I believe if I were to turn this off, let's see, determines how the stick's analog's input is used to turn free view. So classic, I believe, is just basically exactly what Titanfall is, and just puts it in Apex. I like steady because it's, as it describes, a balance of firm control and fast aim. You're able to react quickly to movements around you while also having decent control of your weapons when, someone isn't close to you. Look dead zones. I would recommend keeping this on small to none. Basically, none honestly would be best. I might change that as is. Basically, if you have stick drift, this is the setting for you. If you have a lot of stick drift, then you may need to put this at large or small. I have gotten myself a new controller, so I don't need this anymore. But if you have stick drift, this is the setting for you to help reduce the just random drag as your stick goes off into the moon. I don't need this, so I have it at none, but I know for a lot of people that struggle with stick drift, they need to put it at large even. So, but if you really want to keep this at none, because it does affect the way only if needed, as it says, a smaller dead zone allows for better aim control. That's exactly what you need. So, next thing, movement dead zone, I have this at small. This is if your left stick has a lot of drift. I don't really have any, so small is the minimum. Large if you have a lot of stick drift on your left analog stick for movement. Invert look, this is not something I like personally. A lot of people back in the older days of FPS, this used to be inverted, so they might be used to that. I keep that off. Now, vibration. Entirely up to personal preference. For me personally, I keep it off. It ruins my aim if I put this on, especially if I'm using the wingman or other precision weapons. I think vibration is good for some people that have some issues detecting people that's around them, so it's another way of basically saying, hey, you're being attacked. Oh, hey, there's something going on around here that you need. Another thing to warn you or let you know, hey, there's danger around you. And they keep it on that way. But for me personally, I think I have enough awareness in the game at this point that I keep it off. Now, ALCs. This is the big one. And I will bring this over here. We will cover some basic definitions. So, controller has, by default, just in its nature, that spray weapons are better, just because of the tracking differences that you're able to stick on target. Single fire weapons are more difficult to control on controller. This is just the nature of how this works. Mouse and keyboard players just have the natural ability to do better with those particular weapons, and we have a better ability to do tracking with, R301, R99, Flatline, I mean, you name it. So, you want to use spray weapons in order to put your advantage to use. This is why you know, I've been playing on controller for many, many years. I've been playing Call of Duty since Modern Warfare 2 online, and I'm just a lot more akin and unnatural with controller. I am fine at mouse and keyboard, but it wouldn't be to the same level as I am on controller, so that's why I'm just more comfortable on controller, and that's why I choose to play this input. And now, I also wanted to bring up the Reddit post. This Reddit post has been immensely helpful, and it basically tries to emulate Call of Duty's aiming feel. And it goes into, and he does an explanation as to what his personal settings were, because he runs, I believe, on a 5 sensitivity. And there's a link, a couple helpful links in here to help do the math. But basically, it tries to emulate the 0 to 20 or 1 to 20 sensitivity scale that you get on Call of Duty nowadays versus Apex 1 to 9. So you have to do a little bit of math to kind of change it up to where you need to be on your settings if you come from a Call of Duty background. Again, if you've played Titanfall, this might not be the most helpful guide for you because this is just kind of how I play and how I've been used to things. But I will link this in the description to help, you know, get you guys started for what your sensitivity was. My dead zone is very minimal. I don't really need this more than I need it. You know, my dead zones are, I mean, I don't want to go into the full definitions of everything because it literally says right there, and I'd be an idiot trying to explain things. So, dead zones, I try to keep it at a minimal. Outer threshold, also to a minimal. As you can see, these gray lines here is what the, what's it called? The default settings are. I tried to bring this down as much as possible because this affects your aim in a big way. I try to keep these to minimal. Response curve, as it says right there, it basically just kind of changes as much. You see the graph right there, basically. If you have this on max, you have to put your right stick really far out there to kind of ramp things up to go really fast. So I keep it on 14 because that's the way I like it. Again, I went through per optic settings. That is entirely up to you. I keep this off because I have a muscle memory to run snipers and SMGs the way I do. Yaw is the look left right. So this is your left and right. Pitch is your up and down. Okay? In terms of looking left to right, I have this at 210. At pitch, I have this at 170. 171, I guess, for the time being. I guess one won't really make too much of a difference. Basically, speed is the quickness at between how long it takes for you to turn left and right and up and down. Left and right is more important. There's some instances where up and down can be really helpful, but I don't want it being super fast either because I feel like it throws off my aim more often. Extra yaw, turning extra yaw quickly allows for quicker turnarounds without sacrificing fine control. I leave this at the default, and I believe this is closer to where I want it to be, because if I leave this at default, this is super slow. It takes like forever to look up or down if your enemy is above you. So I bring this up quite a bit. And this is, mind you, all according to the guide that I listed with Reddit. Turning ramp up time. I do not want this. This limits your ability to react to something. Basically, if you're holding the left or right stick, it takes more time for you to react to someone that is next to you, and I don't want that. So I minimize this. It's just a little bit of a delay, if anything at all. 5% isn't going to really affect it that much compared to what? 35% on default. So that's a pretty significant difference. ADS yaw speed. Again, this is for... Now, this is when you're un-ADS'd, by the way. This one is when you're actually aiming down your sight on your gun. I want this at a lower sensitivity, and I left these on default, I believe, because you want more fine-tuned control whenever you're aimed down sight. So this is a medium to long range situation. where you don't really need to be as fast on the movements, but you still want to have precision and be able to be tracking your target. So I left these on default, and I believe that's what the guide, because of the sensitivity I have, left it on as well. ADS, extra turn and extra yaw, or extra ADS turning, extra yaw, ADS turning, extra pitch. How much more quickly the view goes up and down. So I want these a little bit much higher, actually, compared to the default. Basically, my ability to fast react to someone that's like jumping in front of my face while I'm ADS. I was able to build the muscle memory for this. This might not be a setting for everyone, so you should maybe try to build up to this if you want, but to me, this is just the settings I've been able to get adjusted to, and it helps me in a lot of situations where they do quick movements in front of my screen, and I need to react to that while I'm ADS. This is especially helpful for like the wingman, for example, where you have a lot of strafe speed still with your gun, but want to still be precise and accurate with your gun. So I have it built up this way based off my COD sensitivity that I've been playing for years. If you're a new player, this might not be the best for you, but work your way up to higher numbers. And 0% because we do not want delay when we want to ADS and look at a target. So, and again, target compensation. So this is aim assist. I leave these on because personally, they're there to help you. It's assistance. It's not an aimbot. It doesn't aim to someone's head whenever you ADS, okay? It's something that helps you keep track of targets whenever they are strafing, right? So if this guy is strafing and I'm trying to shoot his legs, it's not going to instantly lock to their head, right? I have to work my way to the head and then shoot the head. It's not something that people keep saying